spotlights.
It's just they're casting a shadow on you. You're like hiding in the corner. That's all.
Yeah,
I'll turn them off.
You're kind of dark right now, Jamie.
That's better.
Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
Shh. That was Jamie doing his Steve Martin impression. I was born a poor black child. I was born. Oh, hey, we're live. Yeah, hi. Oh, oops. Sorry, Richard.
That's
good
all right.
luck.
You can edit.
No,
it out.
no,
That's
good
fine.
luck.
Absolutely fine. Right. So we are here. Cole's here. Wayne's here. You two usual idiots are here, and for some bizarre reason, I decided to be here as well. So are we good to go?
We are.
Yeah.
Excellent. So, deep breath, slight pause. Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good times, whatever time it is, and wherever you are listening. Joined with me, as always, Mr. Chris Cute.
Cheers. How are you?
Unfortunately, Mr. Jamie Page.
How you doing?
But to restore the balance, hopefully. No pressure, guys. We have Wayne the Woodturner. How are you getting on, Wayne?
Good morning. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Thank you. And I'm loving that lockdown beard. That is awesome. that is truly awesome. And also,
That's normal.
So it's Wayne, and normal is awesome. Awesome is normal. Yeah. So not to set the bar too high. Carl, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Not too bad at all. It's kind of I get to Sunday at the moment, and I'm like, is it the start of a long week or is it the end of a long week? Everything blurs. So but just bear with me. I've pretty much no idea what goes on most of the time. So certainly not. It'll become no surprise. No idea this evening either. So yeah.
Go with the end, Richard, because tomorrow's another day.
Going through. Yeah.
Does a loop have an end? That's the thing. Exactly. Yes.
To infinity and beyond. Let's go.
Does sometimes feel like infinity. A massive shout out to the live listeners this evening. I'm going to kind of pull out a few as I sometimes do. We've got Karam, we've got Andy Heel, we've got Dale from Maple Tree Studios, Ian in the Shed, and Andy Pugh, and we've got Damo Uji Kapivi with us as well. So a massive warm welcome to all you good peoples, and also the peoples that haven't in the chat, or those I didn't miss, or also you people listening in the future. As always, tonight's show is brought to you in part by Yorkshire Grit, Woodturners Abrasive Paste, our good friend Chad at Mancrafting, Pam from Highland Boxes, and also Steve over at Harneal Media, who actually does all the kind of computery stuff. And Jamie, as you know, just takes the credit for it. He's sitting there nodding his head.
As always.
Yeah. I've just resigned to the fact that I've been bobbled on that one, and let's not get out of it. What do you do again, Jamie?
Nothing.
Excellent. That's if you don't do anything, you can't do anything wrong. That's my motto.
All right.
Chris, do you have a list of questions for the week? I think tonight's going to be random enough. If I know Carl and Wayne, but
I wanted to go back to what we do, because it pretty much leaves everything that goes wrong my fault, because neither one of you do a darn thing.
That's
broad shoulders, Chris.
we do. Well, they're just slightly flatter, whereas me and Jamie's
that's all right.
Yeah. Nothing sticks on ours. Like, pew.
Well, no, half an hour before we do this every week, Carl, Wayne, I get messages from Richard, Jamie. What are we doing this week? What's going on? Anyway,
what are we talking about?
Yeah, what are we talking about? Who's that?
Sunday already? No.
Jeez. So preparedness is not our thing. Anyway, I don't have any actually random listener questions. Richard, I have questions. I mean, but they're from our favorite inquisitor. If you want me to start with that, I can. It's going to jump us right into the subject. So if you're ready, I'm ready.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm obviously interested to find out what you guys are talking about in terms of the wood turning side of it. So I'm really intrigued what the questions are, because as it will come as no surprise to anybody,
all right, well,
I haven't seen the questions.
Andy Pugh, actually, and Andy, I'm going to give you props on this one, asked a really good question today. And it's not that your other questions aren't good. It's just this one I don't want to say it was astounding. It was better than average.
But then Andy's questions usually are pretty. He sets the bar pretty high on the quality.
Well,
of
he
questions,
does, which
doesn't
is
he?
why
So
we need to have
in
him back
order-
on again so we can berate him once more. Anyway, and Carl and Wayne, this is directed to you. And I guess the rest of us can chime in on it. But Andy's question is, and honestly, this is a good question, is turning the biggest rabbit hole in the woodworking world?
In the woodworking world.
The woodworking world. Oh,
Is
Or
it
just the
possibly
actual
the
world?
biggest rabbit hole that you could possibly go down in the woodworking world? And I have my answer, but I think I need to hear from the pros first. Let's go with Carl. Carl, what do you got, man?
I don't know. I hear that all the time about. Yeah, I don't know if it's the biggest one, but I hear it's a rabbit hole, and I don't know. I mean, it kind of depends on what you're going to do.
I heard pen turning is.
Yeah, I mean, I guess because you got to buy all the little bushings and stuff. But I mean, if you're just turning bowls, you only need a lathe and a couple of tools. You know, I mean, it just depends. If you want to do
What size
a
of bowl you want
variety
to-
of stuff, yeah.
But Carl, let's be honest. If you just wanted to turn a bowl, you'd have a lathe and a couple of tools. You, my friend, have more than just a lathe and a couple of tools. So I think that what he's trying to say is, and I'm kind of right there with him. Once you get into it and you've turned your bowl and you've got a lathe and a couple of tools, there's always something out there that is just like beyond your reach that you want to have.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're doing like a huge variety of different projects, yeah, you need a ton of different tools to do different things and stuff.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends on, on what you want to do. I think more than anything.
All right. So if you're looking for simple, lathe.
I guess eventually you want to start adding color, and eventually you don't want to sand all the way up to them through them sandpaper. So you buy the finest of abrasive paste, you also grip.
Jesus.
Nice little plug there from our sponsors.
He has Jamie has absolutely zero shame. He has none. It just doesn't. He'll plug whatever he can. Plug whatever he can. Wayne, let me ask you, buddy.
Other brands are available, but it's pointless buying them.
Oh, Jamie, shut up. What? Wayne, same question to you. Is turning the biggest rabbit hole in woodworking? I mean, because both of you and Carl are very talented, and I will give that to you. And that doesn't come often, so please take it.
So in comparison to flat work, I'd say no.
How so?
Right. In my shop for woodturning, okay, I've got 2 lathes, I've got a whole bunch of tools. In your shop for flat work, you've got saws, thicknesses, planers, all different types of tools. Loads and loads of different types of flatwood, different boards and things you use, ply, MDF, whatever.
Drill presses, miter saws, band saws, table saws.
Yes, yeah. Okay, I've got a bandsaw as well.
That's a solid point, though. That's a good point.
Yeah, whereas as a case of a lathe, you can just whack anything on there.
I wonder sometimes whether it's. Sorry, Chris. I'll just pull the mic in.
No, go, man.
Because I know you get a little bit. Sorry, everyone.
Much better.
I do wonder sometimes if there isn't a little bit of keeping. I know this is going to get people's backs up, and I don't mean to specifically pick on anyone. Genuinely, I know I do. I say this like regularly, but from a kind of a. I mean, I don't call myself a turner. I've got a lathe. I've got quite a few tools. If anyone asks, particularly Cat, they didn't cost as much as.
As I said,
Anyway.
they did.
It's one of those parts of woodworking I've always found to be. You've got to have this. You've got to have this to do this. If you don't have that, you can't do that. It's got to like. If you want to turn bowls, you've got to have a chuck, and if you want to do different sizes of bowls, you've got to have loads of different jaws and all the different size tools, and you kind of don't. Do you know what I mean? Like it's from almost from an outsider's point of view, and I guess we've got 2 very accomplished turners. We've also got obviously Jamie and Chris as well. Sorry guys, didn't mean it to sound like that. To ask this, do you find could you make a lot of your stuff with half of your kit. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
So that kind of begs the question: do you need all the stuff?
Well, no, the thing with that, Rich, is that a lot of the time you don't find out you don't need it until after you've bought it.
That's exactly what I found. Yeah, I'm glad we're kind of on the same page here, because we all sort of see something that someone's using, and you're like, oh, I want to do that. So if I get that, then I can do that. And it's not just into turning. I've found it very prolific within the turning sort of side of things, but it's the same with flat work. It's the same with pretty much every hobby I've ever looked at, to be perfectly honest, whether it's making model aeroplanes or racing model cars or whatever. There's this. Are we just slaves to the marketing department of,
A lot of that happens. A lot of that happens because a lot of well-known turners put their name on the tools.
So it's the reference that you're saying is actually what causes people to want to go out and buy them.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. A lot of the tools that the turners have put the names on are very, very good. And
Very good, Jamie.
They've been very well developed, but a lot of the time it is that. And
you know what? I mean, that burner, Jamie just for people on SoundCloud and iTunes later.
Which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah, Jamie just showed one of the handles for a burner that had Carl's name on it. But you know what? And there was a question that was asked out in the chat. And I want to go ahead and I want to revisit this real quickly. And I guess I'll ask it to Richard, because he and I are more on the same plane than the other three of you. Don't you find turning, if you're going to go out in your wood shop and you're going to do something, turning is actually really relaxing compared to other things that we do?
Yeah.
Richard, I mean, don't. I mean, because I can kind of get lost on a lathe and just kind of gradually make what I want to make, and I'm not worried about angles and fitting things perfectly. I'm just worried about creating what is spinning, and then if it turns out the way I want, and like you, Richard, I'm no professional either. So, because lathe work is for me, and if it's not for you, then you say so. For me, I find rather relaxing. It's a totally different sphere of what I usually do.
Yeah, I mean, I make stuff for people on a regular basis. And for me personally, turning is the sort of the hobby side of woodworking for the most part. And if it's not just like turning a pen because I feel like it, or turning a bowl because there was a bit of wood there and I got the 5 minutes, it's generally for something fairly utilitarian. Tool handles, chisel handles, file handles, hammers, those kind of things. And personally, I see turning in two very distinct areas. And yes, that could be spindles and bowls, it could be resin and wood, it could be whatever. But for me, it's art and form. And I see a bowl. I mean, I look at a bowl, I make a bowl shaped, and because I need to put some fruit in it or keys or change or something like that. But I see the things like that Carl produces, and I'm going to pick on you, Carl. This is going to be pick on Carl night, but only because Jamie's obviously had a little dig with your name on tool. The stuff that you produce is art.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Yes, it's got a function, but it's art.
But it has
for me personally.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, for me personally, I see art before I see the bowl or the vase or the Millennium Falcon or the X-Wing or whatever it is that the art. I see the piece of art first. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think, to me personally, there's a lot of turners that are first and foremost artists, and not turners second, but turners second, because you get. I don't know if you have many of them in the States, but there's a few in the UK that are production turners. Like, I'm churning out 150 staircase spindles this
or bedposts,
afternoon. You're like, crikey! How do you? They literally production.
Right. And it. Yeah. It. I mean, it is. I don't know, when you first, I guess, start out turning, you're trying to, it's more, just getting everything down, trying to figure out how the tool's cut, and you're just making bowls for change and and stuff like that. But I don't know. I think if you just stick with it, you kind of drift into a little bit of that, more into the art stuff, because it's just unless you're a production turner or something like that, because it's I don't know about for everybody, but for me it's I'm turning every single week, and I would just be bored to death if I was making the same thing every week. So that's why I'm always trying to maybe add some art into it, or make the shape just a little bit better, or just like trying to come up with something that,
or give your own spin on it. Because I saw that bread bowl.
Yeah.
I saw that bread bowl that you turned, and by the way, absolutely gorgeous wood.
Thank you.
That's sycamore.
Beautiful.
And this is where I'm going to give Carl a hard time, because I'm not giving Carl credit for this whatsoever, because the wood actually was pretty. What Carl did with it was, it was okay. But I mean, I'm joking. Obviously,
Robin's not here to protect you tonight, Carl. So.
No, if Robin was here, she'd be laughing. And so Carl knows I'm only kidding.
I'm just curious. So, did the wood talk to you, Carl?
Oh yeah, we had a long conversation.
Carl does not believe the wood talks to you when you're on a lathe. And you know what? I think that once you become a skilled turner, such as you are, Carl, and like you are, Wayne, then the wood probably doesn't talk to you, because it's like, I don't care what I'm doing this, and you do it. It's just some of us aren't quite as skilled. Yeah. And so when things get rough, we go, "Oh, wood doesn't want to do that, so it's talking to me." So
I'm going to tell you what shape you're going to be.
Maybe it doesn't slap you in the face as hard as it does us. That's all.
Yeah.
And I think that also translates into flat work as well, because to me that's about knowing the material, not just that particular piece of wood, but knowing wood in general. Tight grain, loose grain, splintery grain, how things are likely to react, how knots are going to react, the direction of the grain, and how it is on any particular blank. So yeah, I can see both sides of that. I mean, I always say that it's the bowl blank that decides what shape the bowl is. That's because it's going all right up until now. I'm going to stop. Whereas somebody who actually has a skill and talent can go, well, that's not how I wanted it. And I know how it can change to what I do want. So
I'll share something with you that will only embarrass me, which is, I'm sure, fine with every one of you. A couple of years ago, I think Carl was doing a live. I don't know if it was on Twitch or if it was on YouTube or what it was, but he was turning a bowl, and I'm very much a novice at turning, and most of what I do has only been spindle work. But I was turning my first bowl, and I cut the blank out on my bandsaw, made it all nice and pretty. But the problem with it is I cut the blank out wrong, and in the first bowl I tried to do, it was a soft wood. I mean, it wasn't pine, but it was, close to. And then B, when I cut it, it ended up being that I was going to hollow out the bowl through the end grain rather than the long grain. Yeah. It used to sit over here in this table in like 6 pieces because I just wanted to remember that. So there are some intricacies that you need to know when you're going to be turning a piece. So if you guys want to elaborate on, and not necessarily on that, but I mean, if you have anything in your mind, Wayne or Carl, that you would pass on to somebody, as dumb as me, don't turn your first bowl end grain, turn it long grain, or B, something else. I mean, pass them along. And anybody out in the audience who has questions today, we brought these 2 gentlemen here today for you to ask questions of. So please feel free. If you are, potential turners or, maybe intermediate and you want to know something, then they're here for you to answer. So if you guys have any kind of tips that you would like to give along the lines that I just led you to, so then feel free to jump in.
Certainly for beginners, I would highly recommend, if you can, take some lessons.
I'm sorry, say it again.
take some lessons from a turner who is very experienced in teaching. You can learn a lot from YouTube and videos, but you can learn a hell of a lot more doing getting actual tuition. And the other thing, especially for beginners, I would say learn the craft. Learn to turn or learn to walk before you can run.
I think I'd add to that, Wayne. I'd 100% agree with that. I'd add, join a club.
Yeah, join a club.
Dig out a club local to you. And I think 9 times out of 10 when I say this, people go, "Oh, there aren't any clubs near me." And that's what I thought. And you go, once you sort of start looking, there's little clubs popping up in all sorts of like church halls and local community centres and people's garages and all over the place. And I did that. I got a lathe. I hadn't turned since I was at school, and I went out and bought a lathe on a whim, basically, because I thought I just want to get back into this, and I was getting nowhere. I read a few books, I watched a few videos on YouTube, and I was getting nowhere. And then I joined a club, and all of a sudden, just from once a month for a couple of hours, watching somebody 10 meters in front of me and listening to them and standing and chatting with people, the kind of accelerated curve just went straight up, just from not even practicing, but talking to somebody in person, then going back and having a go, and then going back to them the next month going, "I tried this and this happened and that happened," and they said, "Well, try that instead," and watching them, and it just accelerates your learning so quick. From
I saw Carl do a video, and Carl, maybe you can give me a better timeline, but I'm thinking 3-4 years ago, I saw you go visit Darbin Orver, and you went to go visit her, and because she was very a newbie when it came to turning, but you actually helped her out a lot, and she's actually progressed since then. And I haven't seen anything from her in quite some time, and I don't know if that's because she's not active or what's going on, but I remember the interaction that you were talking about, Richard, because it always helps to have somebody there. And not, I mean, in that case with Darbin, it was, or I don't know, is that how you pronounce her name, Darbin or Darvin? Okay.
Darvin.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. The in-person instruction is perfect, but if you can actually see somebody doing live, like, because Carl does live exhibitions like at Woodcrafts and places like that, and Wayne, I know you've done a few yourself, and so it's actually, you can learn a lot by being in the same room with somebody and actually watching them do it, because you can see a lot of the technique they're using, and then kind of go back and duplicate it yourself. Carl, I mean, you've done so many of these, and you and Robin have been out on the road, God bless you, to do them. What's the kind of feedback you get from the audience? Are you getting any of that kind of, like, I've learned a lot today, or?
Oh yeah. I anytime anybody wants to get in turning, I'm exactly what Wayne said. You can watch videos to, learn little tips and tricks and get ideas for stuff, but there is nothing, you can't not substitute being right there with somebody teaching you or just watching them actually turn. It's, you can literally go, "How did you do that?" And you can show them how you hold the tool, how you present the bevel to the wood. I mean, it's like, you can't substitute that, in a video, just, turning, some random bowl. So, and, join a club, take some classes. It will be invaluable. It will speed up your learning process. Like Richard, 100%. Just,
Yeah, even the shed just said, he says, as a beginner, it's sometimes knowing what to ask. So watching someone actually helps greatly. So it's like, as opposed to YouTube, which you can learn a lot from if you really, really pay attention. It's you don't have that interaction to ask a question.
Yeah. I've been using the beading tool in the last month or so. It was to do different things on projects, and somebody left a comment that said, "I've been using the tool upside down the whole time." So I mean, you can learn things from it, but I'm not
laughing at them. I'm laughing with them, because that would be something I would do as well. And it would take somebody like you to go, "Chris, flip it over." Oh yeah, light bulb goes on. No, we had a question, and I don't know. It was from Dead Rise Woodcrafts. He wants to know, Carl, do you ever make it to Pittsburgh in the woodcraft store there? Now, that would be quite a hike for you. But, I mean, do you have any plans to come east, that far east anyway?
Well, we were supposed to be in Kentucky in June, but everything got shut down. But yeah, we definitely, have plans to keep going out after everything, opens back up, and because there aren't any shows going on or anything, so it will probably be next summer before we really, start doing some more shows.
Depending on what's going on.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we'd love to go back there. Yeah.
Wayne, we had a question out in the chat earlier that asked how many bottles of whiskey you went through last night.
3
between 5 of us.
That's
about 5 of us.
That's a different kind of turning, and
Yeah, definitely.
That's turning sober to drunk very fast.
I tell you what, I have a personal question because, and this is something I've struggled with, and I've struggled with this with plane blades. I mean, knives, you name it. I suck at sharpening. Okay, I'm going to tell you that right up front. Sharpening, but I did go out and I spent the money. I have a Rikon slow speed grinder. I have. I don't have the nice wheels like you do, Carl, but I have white aluminum oxide wheels that I use on this thing. I have what you would probably know best as a Wolverine type setup from my traditional tools. But I still find it, and I don't know if it's the bevel that the tools come with, but I still find it very hard to follow the bevel on the tool when I'm trying to sharpen it. It's almost like I have to regrind in order to get what I can actually sharpen. I don't know what you guys can say to anybody out there, but anybody who uses traditional tools, keeping your tools sharp is like priority number one. Trust me, I know this, but because I've failed by not having them. Is there anything you could I don't know, illuminate upon us that might help those of us that struggle with sharpening?
Yeah, it's so depending on the tools, like the quality of the tool, they don't come with the sharpened. They don't come with the right bevel on them.
No, they don't.
There's little gauges and things you can get to get it, your 40 degrees or whatever it is you're trying to get. They have little gauges, but once you get that bevel down, I just use a black Sharpie, and I put it on the bevel of the tool. Here. This is all for the SoundCloud people that can't see. So you just color the bevel there with a black Sharpie, and then that way you can turn the wheel by hand, and when the black mark disappears, you have the bevel the same.
Oh, great tip.
But with one
it
other
will
thing,
be
though,
if you use that method to sharpen it.
Yeah. One thing though, with those white wheels, they work well, but you have to dress them. You have to dress them.
I have a dressing tool, so I do know that much. So, but yeah, good point. Because I bought a dressing tool when I got them, but it's almost like you have to dress them after each time you sharpen a tool.
Yep.
And so you
cut them out.
You go through them pretty quick, which is why. And the wheels that you have are what?
They're called CBN wheels, and they're I don't even know what that stands for. It's carbon something, but they never
begins to notice wheels.
Carl buys another one.
Carl's a blooming novice.
They're aluminum wheels. But they never change diameter, and they never wear down. So on like with the white ones, the diameter's constantly getting smaller, so you constantly have to keep adjusting for that.
Yes.
With these ones, it's just the same every time, and they're like lifetime, So it's kind of, they are expensive,
but those aren't cheap. So if you're seriously going to get into wood turning and you want to use traditional tools, and that may be an investment worth looking at, because over the years you end up saving a lot of money. Because I know that if I was really into wood turning, those white wheels that I have would just, that did go from 8 inches down to 6, down to 4, down to 2, and that'd be going, oh, this is just not working anymore.
I've got a white wheel on my grinder. I bought mine. When did I get mine? Must be 8 years ago. Yeah, it must be 8 years ago. And I've never changed the wheel on that. I think I've dressed it times. Not as often as I should. I'll freely admit that. Very rarely, in fact. But I use a similar sharpening system to what you just mentioned, Chris, with the Wolverine type thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one that I knocked up myself out of a bit of square.
Which you can do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of videos on making really simple, basically free jigs like that for sharpening.
You got that thing that I've got gave you as well, didn't you?
And yeah, I mean so the one that you gave me, Jamie, is the flat table rest for doing your skews.
Yeah,
which you can move in about 20 different planes. But before that, it's just a piece of square tube with a piece of V-shaped metal on the end and then an end cap, and you just rest the end of the tool in it, and you can do basically all your tools apart from the skew with that one kind of jig. So and that's what I like, is this sort of goes back to what I was saying before about buying all the stuff. Yeah, it's cool. It's easy to have them and they work, but I mean, people were turning way before Woodcraft set up and before accidents were around. Well, get the old boy set up in the woods with his treadle lathe and stuff like that.
With a piece of flint on the end of a stick. I mean, Richard.
Even Wayne remembers those days.
Wayne's still using them days.
Yeah, when they were really hungry, they just chewed to the bottom of the bowl and they were done.
Yeah. I can remember trying to sharpen traditional tools freehand, because I didn't even know these jigs existed. Again, that was another little thing I picked up from one of the club guys. When I started. So you had to.
There was freehand. It was all freehand.
Ain't got time for that now, though, have we? And that's.
I mean, I remember turning the rollers for the Egyptian slaves to roll the stones over the top of.
Yeah, that was Wayne got the contract for the block rollers.
Yeah. He did all the woodwork in the pyramids.
That's why they took so long to build them.
Yeah. Or if you're American, he made them for the aliens.
Well, here's a question from Andy Pugh says, so is sharpening the same rabbit hole, or is it a different one? You know what, Andy? I think sharpening is pretty much universal throughout a shop. I don't think it actually depends just on the lathe, because I mean, there's a lot of blades in a wood shop that need sharpening. So I wouldn't put that on the lathe people, completely, because there's a lot of things that need to be sharpened all the time. And all I've admitted to is that I suck at it, but go ahead, Carl.
Andy's trying to blame everything on the turners.
Yeah, he is. I don't know what his problem is. Maybe it's because he doesn't have a lathe. I don't know.
Yeah. The Beard 16 just put in the chat. He goes, "I have a poor man's Pro Edge." He's basically just turned a belt sander upside down and made a few extra jigs for it, and it actually works a treat. So, yeah.
But you know what? It's like anything, and these guys will tell you, because it's not like Carl and Wayne and even Jamie they didn't start out doing what they're doing today. It takes practice, boys and girls. I mean, my only problem was, Carl, is after I spent, you guys, is after I spent X amount of dollars on my traditional tools, and I was like, I have them. I was like, I got really scared to mess them up, and I was like, and so I was like on my sharpener trying to get it down to I was like, because I didn't, I just, you need to stop being so inhibited. But thankfully, Jason McGinn, my friend from Canada, sent me a set of old tools, traditional tools, and I went, perfect to practice on. I was like, okay, let's do that. And I'm still not good, but that black Sharpie is a great tip for sharpening. Once you get that, because I mean, I can see how if it's not quite right, you only take off one end and the black marker will sit, and you have to readjust until it goes all the way around. That makes a lot of sense.
Right. Yeah. And like you'll have the black Sharpie on it. So when you if it's the wheel's just hitting down here, it'll just rub it off there. So you have to pull it back and
then
And it should, once you have your bevel, should only take a pass or two to clean it up and, literally just roll it back and forth once or twice and go back to turning.
Let me ask you a question though, because especially like on a bowl gouge, do you go from one side to the middle and then pull back, and then go from the other side to the middle and then pull back, or do you go all the way around to, because I've seen people do it different ways.
So when it's on there, I start on one side and I roll it to right before it gets to the, where it starts to curve.
Yeah.
Then I flip it on the other side, and then I go from that side all the way across the middle.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
Because if you're just going back and forth on it, it's hitting the middle twice. So it's just going to slowly change your bevel just on that part. So
that's what I was asking, because you don't want to go across the middle twice. I was just like, because you go almost okay, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
But it also, once you've got that jig set up, if you're using that tool and you're resharpening fairly regularly during a bowl, or the use of that tool, you're only really doing it maybe a pass or two anyway each time, aren't you? It's not like you're taking much off anyway.
You're right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me put Jamie on the spot real quick, because getting off of the sharpening topic, Jamie, have you done any off-center turning?
No, not really. I mean, kind of a little bit, not loads, but I've actually just bought this little.
It's another jig.
It's another jig, actually. Funny enough.
Rabbit hole. There you go, Andy. Rabbit hole.
It's another jig. It's an eccentric chuck. So it's made for doing off-center turning. So this little back plate here for SoundCloud users that are watching, that screws into the onto the bit of wood, and then that screws into these two plates, and then these two plates are basically pivot points. So yeah, they basically pivot.
It moves out to around about 1.5 inches off center either side.
Now, Wayne, I know you've done a fair bit of off-center turning. I mean, but I've always seen it done. And Jamie, that's a cool jig. I've never seen that used, actually, to be honest. But I've always seen it done, off centers.
On spindle work.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting her name now.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. I forget what her name is. She's kind of known for doing it.
Yeah, because there's different ways of doing off-center. You can do off-center, certainly with the spindle work, you can do it off, so it's between centers. You can do it like that, different ways like that. But with this particular jig, you can actually use this for bowls. So you can actually turn the bowl totally off-center. So you have the shape of the bowl like that, and then the dish part of the bowl will be off-center to one side.
So this goes back to what you were talking about, Richard. This is the art part of doing it, because there's only
totally.
Also, what you can also do with this particular chuck is that, because it's in two bits, that this expansion jaws fit into there, but this other part totally comes off and can go round step by step. So you can actually use it for doing different decorations on the top of box lids.
Yeah, like a spirograph.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and then obviously you can fill it with, say, mother of pearl from Scott Grove at Imagine Inlay.
Let me ask a question, and then Carl, I know you've done a ton of off-center turning, and I've already shown people that I'm a total wuss when it comes to lathe work. But when you've got something that is off-center like that, that kind of scares me. I mean,
me as well.
But I know you've done a lot of that work, Carl. I mean, at what point in time do you feel comfortable doing that? I mean, because I've seen some of the stuff that you've done off center, and it's absolutely gorgeous. But I see that wood kind of going around the lathe, and I'm going, oh hell no, I'm not going there. Carl's a brave man. When did you start trying to do that kind of stuff?
I don't know. Pretty early on, but I mean, they were all just like small things, you know. I mean, it was like goblets and pendants and things like that. Like that chuck that Jamie has, I believe you can do little pendants and things with it too.
That's right.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I've seen something similar to that, but I don't know. It's kind of I don't like doing any huge off center stuff. Some of the stuff's off center when I'm trying to get it trued up, but I don't know if it's like a goblet and you have your face shield on. I mean, it's not like it's going to hurt you.
No,
so.
No, you know what? I'm one of those I'm one of those people that once I start something and I get to a certain point, I just don't want to F it up. And so I'm just like, I'm like, I get scared that I'm going to screw it up. And I was that I hate that. But in a goblet, I can see that. Because if you want to get like a little bend in a stem that you're turning so that, that's really kind of cool. It's just always been, I don't know, rather uncomfortable for me to think about. I was like, I don't know about
that. Bob Lapsley in the chat has put in the person who I was thinking of. It's Barbara Dill. If you go and watch some of her videos on off center turning, spindle work.
Yeah, she's really good at it as well.
I kind of like the way various turners have a sort of a name for particular styles, in exactly the same way as artists in the art world have particular styles. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, I think of Wayne, I think of those amazing feather string pull artwork that you put on your stuff, and Carl with your pyrography and your Lichtenberg and those kind of things. There's people that do various kind of colouring styles. So someone like Martin, that's it, with his colouring and
Nick Agar.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I don't follow the turning side of YouTube like I follow other areas. So I'm not. I mean, a lot of these people that you're mentioning about the office, I've never heard of them because it's not something that I watch.
Send complaints to Richard Morley.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. By all means, as always, folks, you can send in your critique, your criticism, and your complaints to spam@makersinternationalpodcast.com.
And we will never read it.
And someone might never read it. Because it's one of those things. But it's literally just like artists. You think of a Picasso or a Monet or a Van Gogh. Yeah, they are very stylized. Do you know what I mean? But
everybody kind of finds their own niche, and
well, I mean, I think Richard, I think you hit it on the head at the beginning, because I think a lot of what we admire with lathe work is exactly what you said. It's very artistic. I mean, you can do the tool handle things, let me put, you can do what I know how to do, which is completely boring, or you can do what Carl and Wayne and Jamie and the other people do, which is actually freaking interesting. But I did have a question out from the chat from Karam, and I guess he's talking to you, Carl, and you, Wayne. And I know this probably gets asked to you all the time, but I mean, I'll ask it again. But is there a wood turning project that you would like to do that you haven't done yet? That there's something in the back of your head that somewhere along the lines, like, I'm going to get crazy, I'm going to do this someday, but I'm not doing it yet. Is there something that you'd like to do that you haven't done yet?
I don't think so. I know there's some turning that I'll never do.
So correct.
I just haven't got the time or patience to do it. That's segmented work.
So, Karam, Wayne has been around the world in 80 days, so the answer is no. What about you? What about you, Carl? Is there anything that you haven't? I mean, I guess it's tough for you because you've done a lot of.
I don't know.
I'm going to say crazy stuff. So I don't know if there's anything in the back of your head that makes you, Richard, blow me. So, Carl, is there anything that you haven't done that you would like to actually someday tackle that you've had in the back of your mind for a while?
Yeah, there's I don't know, quite a few of them. I could think of that big disc right behind me. That's for a roulette wheel.
Ooh,
nice.
And I've been trying to get. I have to have some big pieces like that. So I've been trying to collect all these pieces because I'm going to do a full size roulette wheel. It's just something I've wanted to do for a couple of years now.
Oh,
So I think too, you know, I mean,
yay. I want to see that.
Yeah,
right?
you should,
I mean, I'm thinking that would be awesome.
you should
Right?
so team up with someone like Bernie Solo and get him to make the metal, the heavy
Yeah.
metal spinny thing in the middle.
Yeah.
That would be
Yeah.
cool. Do it
So
next week. Next week, I want to see the video.
yeah.
Yeah, right. Carl's like, I don't think so.
So Wayne was giving away some of the pieces that he was considering rubbish.
No, I never said rubbish. I said they need to be repurposed.
They need to be repurposed.
That's
Yeah,
nice.
and
That
this
looks
is
like
one of
maple.
them.
That's beautiful.
No, it's elm. Elm.
Elder.
No, elm.
Oh, elm.
Elm
Elm.
Burl.
So
Okay, so it's not as pretty anymore. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's British elm, which means it's much better than U.S. elm.
It's rarer.
It's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
We only get little bits at the moment.
Yeah, it's like American chestnut. It's rare. Anyway, we got any more questions out in the chat there, Jim?
Alcohol safe finishes for drinkware from Gib.
Alcohol safe finishes for drinkware. Question mark.
Gib, I think the alcohol would finish it for you.
That's a good point.
Oh, no.
I mean, if you think about it, what do they age whiskey in?
It's wooden barrels, yeah.
Wooden barrels.
And I was going to ask you this question, Wayne, because I mean, I saw your video on making that. You made that blue sphere, and nice job on finishing that piece.
Oh, thank you.
Oh no, my friend, I was impressed. I mean, because that really turned out wonderful. Finishes for woodworking. I mean, for turning projects. I mean, because now I don't think if you're like me, flat work, I use different finishes for different things. Do you guys use a standard product, or every time I use this, or does it change with circumstance?
Right, on my, if you like, artwork, on the coloured pieces that I do, it tends to be a lacquered finish.
Okay.
On everyday general bowls and things like this, it'll probably be a wax. And on the likes of fruit bowls, salad bowls, things like this, it'll probably be a generalised food safe finish. We do have a company in the UK called Chestnut Products, and they sell a food safe finish.
Okay. Well, we could argue about what is and what isn't food safe.
Yeah, I mean, you can.
Later. I mean, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
What about you, Carl? Do you vary between the finishes you put on? Because I'm honestly, most of the videos I see you do, you don't actually put film. You never put a film-based finish on most of your pieces, at least that I've seen.
Most of them I don't. Most of them I finish with oil. Like but it completely depends on what it is though too. It's because I've done poly and finishes like that. Like Gib they make a here in the States, Gib, there's a it's called salad bowl oil, and it's a food safe finish. So it depends on what I'm doing, but for the most part, I'm not a big fan of the high gloss, but I don't do a lot of coloring and stuff like that either. So I just finish everything with the walnut oil because it puts a nice finish on it, and you can still, it just kind of has a satin look to it, and you can still see all the wood and everything, but it's all personal preference.
Does the walnut oil actually dry?
Yeah.
Much like a Danish oil would dry, whereas opposed to if you just put mineral oil on it, would never dry. So
it soaks into it and dries. Yep.
Okay. Awesome.
Yep. And it's actually, it's a boiled filtered oil. It's not like, if you had a nut allergy, it wouldn't, mess with you too.
Okay. So it's like a boiled linseed oil kind of thing. But obviously with some sort of polymer in there that would make sure you actually harden it and make it dry.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what he
I don't know
puts
either.
in it. But
And I'm not going to try to pretend to be an expert. Anyway, where we at? We got 10 minutes left.
I'm trying to keep Jamie off his little segment, if I'm honest. But
Well,
at the risk
aren't
of,
we all?
at the risk of like opening a whole can of worms, nobody wants to get covered in worms at this point. Because honestly, I really don't care. I just don't care. Traditional or carbide? Oh, he said it. No, 100%. I'm being serious now because, like I said, I really don't care either way. I know Jamie's got a preference, but
I have to, Richard, and I don't mean to throw you under the bus but
No, Carl, please do.
And-
Please do. Please do. A double-decker bus, if you don't mind. Please do.
and I'm with you. I don't care either. But they're not traditional tools. They're just gouges.
That's how people, differentiate them, isn't it? Like a high speed steel
I think,
or a carbide tips tool.
We've gone over this before with traditional and high speed steel. When I started turning, it was carbon steel. It wasn't high speed steel.
Yeah, same as normal chisels.
And that was traditional.
Was that back when you were building the pyramids?
Yeah, exactly. In fact, no, that was bronze.
Flint.
It's fun to have somebody older than me on the podcast that I can pick on. I understand why you guys pick on me now. Anyway,
if you think about it, to me, carbides are my traditional tools.
Yeah, I guess they are for you because that's pretty much. Do you have any of the gouges for Carl?
Gouges, yeah.
Yeah, we were just playing with them today.
Wow. Is that the set that you just showed?
Yeah, I've got spindle. I've got the record power spindle set and bolt turning set.
see, I started out in high school using traditional tools because carbide wasn't around way back in the day when I was a little tyke. So
You had to actually pedal the lathe as well, didn't you?
Yeah, but God, that was tiring. Anyway, but I mean, I started out using those, and so, but I only spent 2 years actually working on a lathe to any kind of degree, and it was like shop class, 1 hour a day, and then I would get some work, So by no means do I want to pawn myself off as being somebody who knew something once, because I didn't. But as we went on, about 6 years ago, I bought a lathe again because I wanted to get back into it, and I always thought I should learn how to use traditional tools first, because I know, and I had heard so many people saying that the carbide tools were so much easier for beginners, but I didn't want to be the guy who just did the beginning. I wanted to know. I'm kind of anal about this. I really want to know the steps it takes to get to a certain point. And so before I wanted to do carbide, I wanted to learn traditional. And I don't know if that would be something you guys would recommend, or if it's just, hey, you know what, dude, whatever makes you happy, go forward. I mean, is there a benefit?
Well, it kind of depends on what you want to do. And so, like when I started turning, there wasn't carbide. I started out and struggled through it and figured out how to sharpen them and everything too. I think nowadays, because carbide is so, they're everywhere, I think the biggest problem people have with turning is they're afraid of it. There's a chunk of wood spinning around at 2,000 RPMs in front of you. And if you've never come up to a lathe before, that could be a little
intimidating. Yeah.
So I just jab this into the wood that's spinning, that big heavy thing.
Right, exactly. So yeah. I think nowadays it's because it's a little intimidating. A lot of people don't do it or quit right away. They'll try it and then they quit. But with the carbide, it's so easy. It's so you just hold the tool flat and you start cutting. So maybe that would get them over that initial, jump right there, and then you can go on to gouges if you want. You're talking about kind of like Jamie's path, because Jamie started out with carbide and he's just now learning with traditional. So
It's basically the flip flop of the way I.
Right.
That figures. I had things asked backwards once again.
But
Okay.
then to counter that, though, I mean, I would similar boat to you, Carl. I mean, I've got the high speed steel tools because that's what they had. When you compare a carbide tool to a traditional a bowl gouge, the price is quite steeply different. There's a big void between the two. Certainly here in the UK, you know.
Is there?
Well, I mean, there can be. There certainly can be. You can get some quite cheap traditional tools. You can get some fairly expensive ones. But I mean, and then you've got like the really expensive carbide tools, and then there are a few people that are sort of independents that make them. So there can be quite a divide. I think if you pick the expensive ones of each,
expensive ball gouges out there as well.
yeah, there are. But on the whole, there are you can pick up a bowl gouge for 10 or 15 quid. But you can also, I mean, there's some pretty cheap ones out there, but there's some really expensive carbide tools that could put somebody off. But then you've got the flip side of that: is it's so much easier to resharpen a carbide tip than it is to then, like we've already talked about, the jigs and the grinder and the wheels.
Yeah, you have to buy all that stuff. But it's so here in the States, I think maybe like something like Harbor Freight or something where you could get some super cheap tools. But in general, our gouges are right about the same as carbide. I honestly, I don't know if there's a whole lot of difference in if you buy a good quality gouge. They're right about the same price. It's kind of, but then he goes back to, I don't know. To be honest, they're just tools. They both do the same thing. They just shape the wood. So, I mean, it's not.
What's the big deal?
Right.
Exactly.
I use both of them. I use both of them every single week. And it's because I use them both all the time. I know that certain one does a job better than the other one. And I will literally be shaping the outside of something with a bowl gouge and turn around and grab a carbide to do something real quick. Or I'll use a gouge to do a certain part of it, and then I'll switch and grab the carbide to finish up this little area that it does better. It's I don't know. It's like softwood. I would never even grab a carbide tool.
Yeah.
They don't.
I know.
They don't do a good job with softwood. So it's kind of, I don't know.
I have 6 pieces to testify to that.
But do you not think it's just like everything else? You could be into DeWalt tools, or you could be into Makita tools, and you'd have the same conversation between two people, and then someone would go, "Oh, well, I use Milwaukee. They're better than both of those." It just it doesn't matter what the tool is, what kind of a tool it is. The same discussion always.
It's but it always boils. But in all honesty, it always boils down to this: are you happy with what you have?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
If you are, then fine. If you're not, then speak up and let's talk about it. It's like, hey man, as long as you're happy, that's all that freaking matters. It's your shop, it's your time, it's your work. Are you happy? If you are, then on anybody else who says you're doing it wrong, I don't care. All right, we got to let Jamie sing, but we're not going to let Jamie sing this week because we have a stand-in for him. Carl, would you like to do your?
Am I doing his? Or am I doing my own?
We heard you do it before we went on the air, so I'm calling upon you.
You can do the singing bit, and I'll do the rest.
Yeah, you do the singing. If you're ready, I'm ready. Everybody take their headphones. Well, actually, no, I'm leaving mine on.
not this week. Oh, this one.
No, because Carl can actually freaking sing. Go ahead, Carl.
Now it's time for Jamie's page.
I like that much better.
Not bad. Need a little bit of work, but we'll get you there.
I need a card with a number.
I'll try and get the accent down.
Yeah. Oh, governor. Just
all right, governor.
Right. So, what we have got for Jamie's page, as Carl said.
You didn't have to do that, Jamie. I'm editing that out.
Red Smith has got. He's teamed up with Dickies, and he's got a summer special 2020 giveaway going on right now. It ends rather rapidly, so if you're interested in that, head over to the Red Smith and get in there for a chance to win some goodies. I think I'm going to leave that there for the Jamie's page this week. Apart from that, my shout out goes to Emmett from Dead Rise Woodcrafts. He's been doing this thing called the Maker Swap. And basically what that is he makes something, another member of a community makes something, they swap, and he puts a video out on it. So he's been doing that. So he's obviously been shipping them all around the world and things like that. So yeah, good for him. So if you're interested in doing that, just shoot him a message. I'm sure he'll be up for it. So yeah, Emmett Rise Woodcrafts.
Nice. Wayne, what about you?
Right, my shout out is going to, it's actually somebody in the chat. It's Mark the Gentleman Woodturner.
Awesome.
Mark Beckett. This is a guy who, medically wise, has been through the mill. I've got to know him quite well. He was actually there yesterday at with joining in with the whiskey drinking. Hasn't been turning that long. He's a relatively new turner. He has got a YouTube channel. He has been doing some lives as well. Really nice guy. Very professional when he's doing his lives, and he's starting to build up. His channel's starting to build up. So that's my shout out.
Mark the Gentleman Woodturner.
Yeah.
Awesome. Carl, I want to put you on the spot. So if you don't have anybody, you don't have anybody. It's no big deal, because I know Richard doesn't have anybody. So if you have somebody you want, Carl, don't laugh. I'm not kidding.
That's what I'm shaking that.
It's a foregone conclusion here. But if you have somebody you want to give some love to, then please feel free.
Yeah, I'd actually like the Braxton, my podcast.
Oh, partner. I like Braxton.
You do a podcast?
What?
You do a podcast?
Oh, don't make me come over there. I'll swim. Yeah, he's been doing a bunch of stuff for a gallery in town, and just always posts on Instagram, and he's been doing a bunch of lives too. So
yes, he has. Braxton's a great dude, by the way, too.
Yes, he is.
Braxton's awesome.
If you've never met Braxton, you need to do that. I've got a shout out today for a gentleman who doesn't really need a shout out, but he put out a video and it was like an hour and a half long. But you know what? It's one of those kind of, if you need to know, you need to know kind of things. And so I spent the time watching it, and it was Paul Sellers. He put out a video earlier this week on how to make a plane tote. And I have a jack plane. I have another plane where the tote on the plane was broken. And I was trying to figure out how to replace the tote. And he put out a video. It was an hour and a half long, but I learned something. I had a lot of questions about it. Because, I mean, obviously, Paul likes to do things by hand. Not me. But he actually showed me how to configure how to get the angle of the screw correct and to go. Anyway, if you're into that, or if you're into any of those kind of things, if you're looking to improve your stuff, then Paul Sellers is a must watch. So check him out.
Yeah, just watching Paul's videos is like get a couple of Horlicks, put your feet up, like Sunday afternoon. It's real gentle paced. But it's really annoying because he literally does stuff quicker by hand than I can do with machines.
I know.
Just does my head in. So,
I agree.
Really.
Go on, Rich. Go on.
I was going to say, Carl, I now want to see you turn a segmented kind of rubber ring for swimming, and then in the video you've got to come after Jamie with this big wooden rubber ring on.
But it's got to have a duck on the top of it.
Oh, yes. A duck.
That's coloured.
I'll do an off-center duck.
An off-center duck. Carl, you never mentioned the name of your podcast when you said that you had one.
What do you like? Oh, it's
well, you've got to promote it.
Woodturners Anonymous.
The number one wood turning podcast on the planet.
Absolutely.
Check them out.
Yeah, there you go.
We've run over a little bit this evening. I knew we would because just purely with the topic.
Well, look who we have. So yeah,
slightly over. Are we doing a? We're not.
If you want, and if they want, we can. Sure, why not?
I mean, I might hang around for a couple of minutes. I've got to be up super early in the morning because I'm back on shift first thing in the morning.
Mine's got to be up super early as well.
Nobody
It
cares.
won't be-
Back to Scotland tomorrow.
Nobody cares. Anyway, wrap it up.
Yeah, totally. Just very quickly for the
I've got a
benefit of let me just hang on. I just need to find the sorry.
Oh, they hate
one
me.
second,
They
Dave,
do
one
hate
second.
me. It's okay.
Yeah, Shop Dog Wood Shop Workshop. He said a few times in the chat. I was trying to find. He had a question for me in the chat. He just said he'll send it over on Instagram. So yeah, send your question over on Instagram. I wasn't ignoring it. I genuinely didn't see the question because the chat's been going like Billio this evening. So I can only apologise for that. Jamie, behave, or I will come down there.
Richard, do you know what this means in the movie business when somebody circles their finger like this?
Wrap it up.
It means wrap it up.
Dear, oh dear. But you're going to edit all this out, so it's not going to make any.
No, I'm not.
any
I'm
real
leaving it
difference.
because it's embarrassing for you, not me. I don't care.
Yeah, I don't mind. Are we sticking around afterwards or not? I don't know. Are we?
I think we already covered that, Richard. Wrap it up.
Oh, sorry. Yes, yeah. Because that's it. Because Jamie's got his
Dear
premiere.
God.
Is Caitlin doing a?
Yeah,
this evening?
Caitlin's on at 11:15. I want to say so.
Excellent. We'll have to edit that out because that won't be relevant come Wednesday. Anyway, thank you all for listening. If you are still listening, if we're not, we'll say what we like about you for as long as we like, Chris. So yeah, until next week, have a great time. We'll see you soon.
Have a great week, everybody. But all the links that we did for shout outs will be in the
Oh,
chat.
now who's dragging it out? Really? Really? Really?
But I'm actually
Seriously?
But I'm actually
You're dragging it out now, aren't you, Chris?
I'm actually giving useful information. Morley, shut up. The links for the shout outs that we just gave are in the chat below if you want to take a look. So beyond Richard's belligerence, have a great week, everybody. I'll talk to you later.
Was that Chris's corner?
That was my corner. Yeah, that was me fighting Richard.
Bye, everybody.
Oh.